So when it comes to jazz chord progressions at the piano, the truth is most people's progressions don't sound that great.
Oh!
They're pretty much rudimentary. They use simple chord structures, maybe sevenths and ninths. They don't really understand jazz harmony to the point where when you put chords together in a string, that there are inner voices, it matters what the melody note is, and everything matters. Now, the ear can't always discern what the chords are. In other words, if you played an A7, 13, flat 9, sharp 11 chord, the ear in most cases wouldn't be able to pick that out, unless of course you had perfect pitch. But what does matter is the ear can discern the difference between chords as they move in progression from one chord to the next to the next. So in this video, I've put together 4 jazz chord progressions. These are advanced progressions from my own playing, and I've put them in 4 different keys just so you can hear the different sounds. Some progressions are a bit longer than the others, but you can definitely apply these to any jazz standard. And that's the beauty of this particular exercise, is as we go through the chord progressions, you'll understand why they're put together. You'll understand the inner voices, the different upper structure triads, and everything associated with it. And then at the end, I'm going to post a link to the sheet music so that you can go and download it and practice it and start applying it to your jazz standards and even your originals. Just before we get into it, I wanted to remind you that if you like videos like this one, all you have to do is give them a quick thumbs up. That'd be really helpful to the channel. And if you'd like to subscribe, please hit the little bell when you do, and we'll notify you of all of the upcoming videos that we're making. All right, let's go to the other room, grab the keyboard, and get into it. Of course, the most important element when putting chord progressions together is the sound that it makes. Choosing the proper notes to go in the chords in succession so that you get the richest sound possible. Now, the ear cannot always discern what the chords are, but it can discern the difference between the chords. There is an inherent listening skill within all of us that says that chord sounds different than the other. We can't quite put our finger on it, but we know that it's good modern harmonic progression. So I've put together 4 really good chord progressions that all lead to one. In other words, we're talking about destination chords. So I'm going to play through them, then we're going to discuss them, and then I'm going to give you some ideas on maybe how to apply them to the standards that you're working on now. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one on your screen. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chords, all leading to the A flat major 7th chord. So that's the last chord. That's what we consider to be our destination chord. So how do we get there? Well, typically what most people would do is play like a 2-5-1. So B flat minor 7 to E flat 7 to A flat major 7. That's great, but we can also put in passing chords and chords that certainly sound richer than that. So let's play this progression. And sometimes the faster you play it, the better it sounds. Just listening to that sounds jazz, and certainly a lot more progressed than standard chord progressions. In other words, 2-5-1. So what I've done with this progression is I've considered this the A flat major 7th chord. I considered that as destination. So we're heading from whatever chord we started with to that destination. So somewhere in there, there'd be a 2. And this is 2, and somewhere in there would be a 5. Ahead of the 2, I've added a couple of passing chords. This one starts on 4, and this one starts on 3. Of course, we're all considering that we're in the key of A flat, at least for the moment. Therefore, when we start on 4, we've got a D flat major 13 chord. Now, we could play pretty much any chord there, like a D major 7, but it doesn't sound nearly as nice. So how does it sound different? It's built in fourths. So there's a 5th in the bass, and then the rest is 4ths in the right hand. So we've got a C7 sus4 chord over a D flat perfect 5th. And then we're moving down a half step to the third of the chord, which is C. And we're putting an F minor chord. So F minor over C, but also built in fourths. That's all fourths. Perfect fourth, perfect fourth, perfect fourth, and finally perfect fourth on top. So, and then this really rich chord, what some people call butter chords, is stuck in there. We could put in a simple B flat 7, but if you throw in a flat 9 and a sharp 11, you get this chord. Now, why does that sound great? It's the way the notes mix together to make that sound. Then instead of going to 5 automatically, which would be E flat 7, we're just heading to this, which is an E flat 7 sus2 chord. So we're not using the third, because if there was a third in there, it would be a tritone. We're not going to do that. We'll stick on the sus chord, and then we're going to play the tritone substitution of E flat, which is A, down to A flat. So this chord contains the E flat 7 tritone, but instead we're basing it on A, which is the tritone substitution, down to A flat. So one more time. The last chord ends on E flat, ends on G, ends on whatever, and I'm talking about the melody note. All right, great chord progression. Let's go down the page a bit and look at the next one. In this one, we're doing a 2-5-1 in D. Now, the reason why I've chosen different keys is because sometimes the way the chords work in different keys just sounds a little bit better to the ear. This chord progression sounds really good in D, and it's nice to get different types of progressions leading to one chords that are in different keys. In this case, the different key is the key of D. So E minor 11th. Pretty simple, it's just all triads. It's a G major 9 chord over E, which makes it E minor 9 11 chord. And then an A 13 flat 9 chord to D 6 9. Now you've got force in that last chord. So this is simply a 2-5-1 progression. This is 2, 5 to 1. And it does a simple 2 minor 7 to 5 7 to 1 major 7. And of course, we're just adding extensions in this case, but it's the way we're doing it that makes that progression sound really nice. So one more time, E minor 11th, A 13 flat 9 to D 6 9. Now you could do this, which is a different sound. So instead of the major 6th, we're throwing in a sharp 5 or a flat 13. So this progression. That also sounds nice. So again, it's just sometimes just mixing up the notes a little bit so that they sound a little bit different. Now, before I play the next one, we're considering this last chord as the destination chord. And then we're just moving backwards from there. So our 2-5 is A minor 11th to 5 7 flat 9. Now again, when I talk about progressions, this could be at the end of a tune, it could be in the middle when you're switching keys. So really all that matters is that what is the destination chord and how do you work backwards from there? So the way we're working backwards is 5 to 1. We haven't changed that, but in front of the 5, we're going to put a different chord here, which instead of the D7 flat 9, we're going to change the quality of the chord to a D9 sharp 11 chord. And then before that, A minor 11th, which is the second note of the scale. And then before that, our 3 chord. So this is considered, this one here is a passing chord leading to 2, and then another passing chord leading to 5. Although it's really 5 to 5, we're just changing the quality of the chord itself. That's a nice sound right there. And one more time. Now I think the reason why this one works so well is you've got this sharp 11 on the D chord, leading to the next chord. So it's going up, it wants to resolve itself up. But also, you're resolving the ninth of the chord down to the flat 9. You hear that? You could use that chord progression all day long on pretty much any standard. Yeah, you're going to have to transpose it into different keys. It sounds great in G major. All right, let's move on to the last one, which is in C major, yet another key. And let's work backward from our destination chord, which is in this case C major 9. So we're going to end here, which is a pretty standard chord. You're going to hear it a lot. It does have this 10th in the bass and the 5th. So if your hands are a little small, you might be able to play it with the right hand as well. So I changed my finger from the thumb in the left hand to the thumb in the right hand. All right, first chord is going to be 3 to 6 to 2 to 5 to the tritone substitution of 5, which is D flat 7, heading to 1. So this is like flat 2 down to 1 major 7. So of course it's a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 progression. Cycle of fifths. Now the interesting thing about this is I've tried to apply the reharmonization techniques for a melody. In this case, the melody note is just going down the scale. Therefore, we need a chord for each of those. 3 minor to 6, 7, 2 minor to 5 sus to the tritone substitution to C major. Now, when you get to the G7 to the D flat 7, you have to consider that you're moving these inner voices. The 2 inner voices here are moving and the 2 notes on the outside are tied. So you're just switching these 2 notes to these 2 notes, just following a half step. And that's what makes good chord progressions. It's not just the entire chord, but it's also the way the chord moves from one to the other and the inner voices that are interacting, whether they rise, fall, resolve, and so on. So I hope that was a helpful and useful exercise for you. I know that when I was a younger jazz player, I could hear things, but I couldn't always discern what they were, and I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't have enough proper instruction to figure it out. But over time, and with a lot of listening and a lot of transcribing, I eventually figured out good chord progression. And this is something that would have been very helpful to me as a younger player. You don't always know what they're doing, but you can certainly hear it and hear how great it is. So I'm going to put a link up here in the corner so you can download these 4 progressions. You can, of course, apply them to any tune in the middle or at the end or wherever you find good harmonic progression. So go ahead and download that and have some fun with it. I think your next step might be to dive a little bit more into simple 2/5 structures and try to make them more rich and complex. I'm going to post that video right here.